Daniel, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Listen to me. I'm sorry.
More than 40 years after The Karate Kid became a global phenomenon, the cast's real lives reveal shocking comebacks, heartbreaking loss, forgotten struggles, and success. Behind the crane kick, these actors experienced careers and battles beyond Hollywood itself. Pat Morita was born on June 28, 1932, and played Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. By the time the movie premiered in 1984, Morita was already 51 years old and had spent decades struggling for recognition in Hollywood. Long before audiences knew him as the calm karate mentor, his real life had already been shaped by painful challenges. As a child, he suffered from spinal tuberculosis and spent years hospitalized. Doctors once believed he might never walk normally again. During World War II, his Japanese-American family was also placed in internment camps. Those difficult experiences later gave emotional authenticity to Mr. Miyagi's quiet wisdom and sadness. What made Morita's performance unforgettable was how restrained it felt. He never played Mr. Miyagi like a traditional action hero. Instead, he relied on patience, subtle humor, and emotional warmth. The famous training scenes involving waxing cars, sanding floors, and painting fences became iconic because Morita made them feel personal instead of theatrical. Even simple conversations carried emotional weight. Ironically, the studio was reportedly uncertain about casting him at first. Before The Karate Kid, Morita was mainly known for comedy roles, especially on Happy Days. Some producers worried audiences would not accept him in such a serious, dramatic role. But once filming began, those concerns quickly disappeared. His chemistry with Ralph Macchio became the emotional foundation of the movie. Without that connection between Daniel and Mr. Miyagi, the story likely would not have become such a cultural phenomenon. The Karate Kid permanently changed Morita's career. In 1985, he received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, something extremely rare for a martial arts drama at the time. More importantly, Mr. Miyagi became one of the most respected Asian American characters in mainstream Hollywood during the 1980s. For many viewers, he represented balance, discipline, kindness, and emotional strength. Morita later returned for multiple sequels, and continued acting steadily for years, including voicing the Emperor in Disney's Mulan. Still, audiences always connected him most strongly to Mr. Miyagi. On November 24, 2005, Pat Morita passed away at age 73 after years of declining health. For many fans, the loss felt personal because Mr. Miyagi had become far more than a movie character. Even today, Cobra Kai continues honoring his legacy, proving that his influence on pop culture never truly disappeared. Ralph Macchio was born on November 4, 1961, and played Daniel LaRusso in The Karate Kid. One of the most surprising facts about the movie is that Macchio was already 22 years old while playing a teenage high school student. Because of his naturally youthful appearance, many viewers genuinely believed he was much younger. That quality helped Daniel LaRusso feel believable, as an awkward outsider constantly trying to survive in unfamiliar situations. Daniel's story connected deeply with audiences because underneath the karate tournaments he felt relatable. He was not rich, naturally confident, or physically intimidating. After moving from New Jersey to California with his single mother, he struggled to fit in almost immediately and quickly became the target of Cobra Kai's bullying. Ralph Macchio played those vulnerable moments with sincerity, which made viewers emotionally invest in Daniel's journey from beginning to end. By the time the final tournament arrived, audiences were fully behind him. The famous crane kick ending eventually became one of the most recognizable scenes in movie history. Even people who have never watched the full film often recognize the pose instantly. That level of cultural impact is extremely rare, and almost overnight Macchio became one of the most recognizable young actors of the 1980s. Following the success of The Karate Kid, Macchio returned for multiple sequels and later appeared in projects like Crossroads and the comedy My Cousin Vinny. While those films earned loyal fans, his mainstream career gradually slowed during the 1990s. Unlike many celebrities who constantly chased controversy or publicity to stay relevant, Macchio kept a relatively private personal life. For years, some viewers assumed his biggest Hollywood success was already behind him. Then, Cobra Kai changed everything. When the series premiered in 2018, many people expected simple nostalgia. But the show became one of television's biggest surprise hits. Audiences now saw Daniel LaRusso decades later as an adult balancing family responsibilities, business pressure, old rivalries, and unresolved emotional scars. Instead of trying to recreate his teenage image, Macchio embraced aging naturally, which helped longtime fans reconnect emotionally with the character. At the same time, younger audiences discovered Daniel LaRusso for the first time through streaming platforms. Cobra Kai also allowed Macchio to explore more emotional complexity than the original film sometimes showed. Daniel was no longer just the underdog teenager. He had become a husband, father, mentor, and businessman trying not to repeat old mistakes. But today, Ralph Macchio remains one of the franchise's most respected stars. He has been married to Phyllis Fierro since 1987, and their long-lasting marriage stands out in Hollywood. In 2024, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Another reminder of how deeply the Karate Kid influenced pop culture. Elizabeth Shue was born on October 6, 1963, and played Ali Mills in The Karate Kid. When the film premiered in 1984, she was only 20 years old and appearing in her first major movie role. Even though the story focused heavily on the rivalry between Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence, Ali became one of the emotional anchors of the film. Elizabeth Shue brought warmth, intelligence, and natural charm to the role, making Ali feel far more believable than a typical teenage love interest. One reason her performance worked so well was the chemistry she shared with Ralph Macchio. Their scenes together felt awkward in a realistic teenage way rather than overly dramatic or polished. At the same time, Ali's history with Johnny Lawrence added emotional tension to nearly every major conflict in the movie. She represented the normal teenage life Daniel wanted but kept struggling to reach because of Cobra Kai's aggression, and constant intimidation. Interestingly, Shue reportedly faced heavy competition for the role. Several actresses who later became major Hollywood stars were considered during casting. But once filming began, audiences quickly understood why she stood out. She had an approachable screen presence that balanced the movie's more emotional moments. Even decades later, many fans still consider Ali one of the franchise's most likable characters. After The Karate Kid became a huge success, Elizabeth Shue's career expanded rapidly. She starred in films like Adventures in Babysitting Cocktail alongside Tom Cruise, and later Back to the Future, Part 2 and Part 3. By the late 1980s, she had become one of Hollywood's most recognizable young actresses. But unlike many stars trapped by early fame, Shue successfully evolved into more serious dramatic roles. That transition became especially clear during the 1990s. Instead of relying only on commercial blockbusters, she began taking emotionally demanding projects. Her biggest turning point came with Leaving Las Vegas in 1995. Playing opposite Nicolas Cage, Shue delivered a vulnerable and emotionally intense performance that surprised many critics. The role earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress and completely changed how Hollywood viewed her abilities. Over the years, she continued balancing mainstream visibility with respected performances in both film and television. Then came Cobra Kai. When Elizabeth Shue finally returned as Ali Mills during Season 3, longtime fans were genuinely excited. Fortunately, the series handled her return carefully by focusing more on emotional closure than simple nostalgia. Today, Elizabeth Shue remains one of the most respected actresses connected to the Karate Kid franchise. Even after more than 4 decades in entertainment, she continues maintaining a reputation for professionalism, consistency, and longevity in an industry where that kind of stability is surprisingly rare. William Zabka was born on October 20, 1965, and played Johnny Lawrence in The Karate Kid. When the movie premiered in 1984, Zabka was only 18 years old and still early in his acting career. Ironically, despite becoming one of the most famous martial arts villains of the 1980s, he had very little karate training before filming began. Still, the moment he appeared wearing the Cobra Kai uniform, audiences immediately believed him. Johnny Lawrence felt intimidating because Zabka gave the character confidence, arrogance, and emotional unpredictability. During the 1980s, many viewers saw Johnny as the classic high school bully. He was athletic, popular, wealthy, and shaped by Cobra Kai's aggressive philosophy. But over time, audiences began viewing the character differently. Beneath the tough attitude, Johnny was still an insecure teenager constantly pressured to appear strong. That emotional complexity later became one of the most important parts of Cobra Kai. After The Karate Kid became a major success, Zabka continued playing aggressive characters in films like Back to School and Just One of the Guys. Because his Cobra Kai image became so iconic, Hollywood often cast him in similar roles. Eventually, he shifted toward writing and producing, even earning an Academy Award nomination in 2004 for the short film Most. Then, Cobra Kai completely changed public perception of both the actor and the character. Instead of portraying Johnny as a simple villain, again the series explored his regrets, loneliness, failures, and emotional damage. Audiences suddenly saw a middle-aged man trying to rebuild his life after decades of disappointment. That honesty transformed Johnny Lawrence into one of the franchise's most layered characters. Today on Simbure, many fans consider Cobra Kai one of television's greatest comeback stories, and much of that success came from William Zabka's performance. He helped turn Johnny Lawrence from a stereotypical 1980s bully into someone audiences genuinely cared about. Martin Covey was born on March 6, 1946, and played John Kreese in The Karate Kid. By the time the movie premiered in 1984, Covey was already a seasoned actor with years of television experience behind him. But nothing in his earlier career prepared him for the cultural impact of John Kreese. The moment audiences heard the phrase, "strike first, strike hard, no mercy," Cobra Kai instantly became one of the most feared dojos in movie history. What made Kreese especially intimidating was how controlled Martin Kove played him. Instead of acting wildly aggressive all the time, he stayed calm, cold, and emotionally distant. That restraint made the character feel even more dangerous. Kreese genuinely believed compassion was weakness, and that fear was the best way to control people. Every student under him slowly absorbed that mentality, especially Johnny Lawrence. Kove's physical presence also helped define the character. His intense stare, military posture, and commanding voice made Kreese feel believable as someone capable of psychologically dominating teenagers. Even viewers who had never practiced martial arts understood immediately that Cobra Kai represented something toxic beneath its confidence and discipline. After The Karate Kid became a massive success, Martin Kove continued acting steadily throughout the 1980s and 1990s. He appeared in projects like Rambo First Blood Part 2, Cagney and Lacey, and several action films and on television series. Still, no matter how many other roles he accepted, audiences always connected him most strongly to John Kreese, because the character had become too iconic to separate from his career. For years, many fans assumed Kreese's story had already ended. Then Cobra Kai brought him back and completely changed the tone of the franchise. His return reopened old emotional wounds for Johnny Lawrence and reminded viewers how destructive Cobra Kai's philosophy could become over time. Suddenly, the story was no longer just about karate rivalries. It became about manipulation, trauma, and the long-term damage caused by toxic mentorship. Surprisingly, Cobra Kai also explored Kreese's past and revealed how his military experiences shaped his worldview. Those flashbacks added emotional depth without fully excusing his behavior. Martin Kove managed to show moments of vulnerability underneath the intimidation, making the character feel more layered than many fans expected. Even decades after the original movie, Kreese still feels threatening because his influence continues damaging relationships around him. Today, Martin Covey remains one of the most recognizable villains connected to 1980s cinema. And honestly, without John Kreese, the Karate Kid franchise would never have carried the same emotional intensity that audiences still remember more than 40 years later. More than 40 years after The Karate Kid first premiered, the cast still continues to influence generations of viewers around the world. What started as a simple underdog story eventually became something much bigger about mentorship, balance, redemption, and personal growth. From Pat Morita's unforgettable wisdom to Ralph Macchio's emotional sincerity, Elizabeth Shue's warmth, William Zabka's redemption arc, and Martin Kove's intimidating presence, every actor helped shape the franchise into a lasting cultural phenomenon. And thanks to Cobra Kai, a completely new generation has now discovered these characters all over again. That legacy alone proves The Karate Kid never truly disappeared.